According to United Van Line's most recent report, North Carolina was ranked number 6 of the biggest inbound relocation markets in the country. The blue states indicate the highest number of inbound moves. But maybe it didn't occur to you that while 60% of North Carolina moves were inbound, that means 40% were outbound. Where are all those people going and why? In today's video, I'm going to give you the 5 reasons people left North Carolina. But before we do, I want to share some new economic reports from Realtor.com and the Wall Street Journal that show which cities are on the rise and which cities are on their way out. Some cities that were super hot in 2020 are no longer the cool kids, and other cities are becoming the place to be. So let's look at those shifting dynamics in the housing market, and then we'll talk about how all of that applies to North Carolina. Realtor.com and the Wall Street Journal have been collaborating to identify emerging markets in the U.S. They put this report out every quarter. This is their 3rd report of its kind, and identify which markets are the next big thing based on a handful of criteria, including local economy and the quality of life for the top 300 cities in the U.S. The purpose of this information is to determine where people will be moving next. The top 5 emerging markets in the 3rd quarter of 2021 are Elkhart, Goshen, Indiana, Rapid City, South Dakota, Topeka, Kansas, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Jefferson City, Missouri. You'll find a link to the full list in the comments below. What's unique about these cities is that they outperformed all 300 other cities in the United States, and they all had some similarities to each other. In the top 20 emerging markets, the unemployment rate was 3.9% compared to 5.1% for the entire group of 300 cities. The average growth of the median housing price was 13%, almost double the average for the entire 300, which was 6.6. The emerging markets also had a much larger decrease in available housing inventory compared to the average. Inventory was down 26% for emerging markets compared to 17% for the whole 300. And the 67% of recent home shoppers in the top 20 emerging markets were from outside the area, as opposed to 61% in the whole 300. Now, personally, I still think 61% of buyers being from outside of the area in 300 cities is a huge deal. It's like the entire country is still trying to find the best place to live. This is still fallout from employers shifting to remote work, but according to a PwC survey, less than 1 in 5 employers are wanting to return to work as it was pre-pandemic. And before the pandemic, 33% of workers were already fully remote. Remote work is not a temporary situation. I've seen some estimates as high as 55% of workers being permanently remote. Outside of the data in these emerging markets, there are also quality of life markers that are similar across all of them. Wages are slightly higher and property taxes are lower. This is what Realtor.com had to say about the low tax rates. Savings on property taxes and other costs of living give locals the means to spend at splurge amenity stores, and we see 2.3 on average among the top 20 compared to 2.1 splurge amenity stores per 1,000 people. Now, I have no idea what that means, but y'all should thank me for slogging through this incomprehensible text written by economists to give you the basics so you have some idea of what is going on around here without having to read stuff like that. According to HP.com, other similarities between emerging markets are reliable Wi-Fi and a connection to nature. Okay, now that we've seen the haves, let's take a look at the have-nots, those cities that have fallen off the list of emerging markets where the market is starting to slow down. The following 5 markets fell out of the top emerging markets from the previous quarter. Portland, Maine fell 26 points from position 6 to position 32. Concord, New Hampshire fell 33 points from 18 to 51. Elizabethtown, or is it Elizabethton, Kentucky? I don't know. Tell me in the comments if you know how to pronounce that city. Anyway, it fell 42 points from 20 to 62. Springfield, Ohio fell 76 points from 16 to 92. And the big one that fell the farthest was Bangor, Maine, which fell 143 points from 9 to 152. Now, I want to give you one caveat before putting too much stock in all of these shifts. All of these cities, with the possible exception of Elizabethtown, Kentucky, are located in the north. Many of the areas that moved into the top 20 were located in the south and the southwest. These housing reports are comparing the data to the previous quarter, not the previous year. I wouldn't be surprised if the ones that dropped out of the top list had something to do with seasonality. Moving during snowstorms is probably not very pleasant, and I wouldn't be surprised if many more people in the north stop house shopping during the winter months than people in the south. If so, we'll probably see some of these towns that dropped down on the list jump back up in the spring, but that remains to be seen. All right, so if North Carolina is an emerging market, there were several North Carolina cities on that list. Why are 40% of movers leaving North Carolina? And let me tell you, I did some research on the 20 largest cities in North Carolina, and even our lowest performing cities had much higher median price jumps than the average for the 300 cities nationally. But I'll talk more about that in another video. For today, let's talk about why people left North Carolina, and then I'll tell you where they moved to. There were 5 primary reasons that the people who left the state left. The first reason was retirement. 24% of inbound movers moves were people retiring to North Carolina, and about 15% of outbound moves were people retiring from North Carolina. People also moved for health reasons. Actually, almost twice as many people left North Carolina for health reasons than moved into North Carolina for health reasons. I actually have a client right now who is getting ready to sell their home because several family members were diagnosed with a mold allergy. North Carolina is a damp state, and mold is just in the air here. If you have trouble with mold, you really might not want to move to North Carolina. Almost exactly equal numbers of people moved to and left North Carolina to be near family, home is where the heart is, and 11% of people left North Carolina for lifestyle reasons compared to 15% who moved here for lifestyle reasons. There are certainly some lifestyles that cannot be had in North Carolina, and a big city vibe is one of them. The only people I have ever heard mention not liking it here have been people who just could not adjust to our smaller cities. They were used to New York City, London, Paris, and we just don't have that kind of variety in lifestyle. And 50% of people who left North Carolina did so for a job opportunity, while only 37% of people who moved here came here for a job. This definitely matches what I've been seeing. I mean, look, more people are moving here for lifestyle, but not for jobs. Our economy is good, but I think the lifestyle factor outweighs the jobs. We have a really big movement of remote workers moving here for lifestyle and bringing their jobs with them. Okay, so all these people leaving North Carolina, where are they going? The number one place North Carolinians moved to was South Carolina. 83% of North Carolinians who left the state moved to South Carolina. You should know, though, that it's not unusual for people living in Charlotte Metro to move across the border to South Carolina for cheaper taxes, but to retain their jobs in North Carolina. Also remember that group that moved for retirement. South Carolina is a more retirement-friendly state, according to Kiplinger.com. The next most common place to move was just north of the border in Virginia, which is also more tax-friendly for retirees. So those moves aren't people trying to get out of the state. They want to retain the Mid-Atlantic lifestyle, but they're looking for a change, likely due to taxes or family. The last three are Ohio, New York, and Georgia. About 1.5% to 2% of movers went to one of those three states. I have the feeling that as remote workers search for that perfect city to move to, the continually changing housing markets will create continually emerging markets as housing gets expensive in the most popular place, pushing buyers on to the next one. My next market video will discuss emerging markets in North Carolina. As Raleigh, Durham, and Charlotte continue to get pricier, where will the next boom towns be? I'll let you know in an upcoming video, and if you like this video, you might also like this one. This is the stuff nobody tells you about moving to North Carolina.